Welcome, folks, and good morning. We're just going to take a moment as people continue to come into through the waiting room. This is the Creating Equitable Schools, a Roadmap for Education Leaders webinar series. And we'll be starting this session with a pre-recording once everyone gets settled down into the room. Today with us, we have Carrie Kozecki from Pennsylvania PBS and Ron Hetrick from Pennsylvania PBS. They're going to be helping us answer any questions and talk through any comments and questions on the back end of the webinar. But I think we're going to go ahead and get started soon. And thanks for taking time out of your busy days to join us for this webinar series. It looks like folks have got into the room, Sarah, if we want to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Creating Equitable School Systems, a Roadmap for Education Leaders webinar series. Today, we're going to be discussing the Connecting to Learning initiative. The Connecting to Learning initiative is a transformative approach to supporting distance learning in communities across Pennsylvania. The intention of the initiative is to remove connectivity barriers to distance learning and to support school entities in building the systems for supporting remote learning for all students. The end goal of these efforts is to connect more students to learning experiences. The initiative is being supported by the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Funds, or GEERS funds, which are part of the Federal CARES Act. The Pennsylvania Department of Education is partnering with the state library systems, Pennsylvania PBS, the intermediate units, Penn State University, and school entities across the Commonwealth. The initiative will take part in several phases, with phase one having both universal and targeted supports. We are establishing supports within the initiative in these two categories, universal supports. So let's dive deeper into what those universal supports are. Universal supports are those resources that any school entity or community will be able to access as a part of the initiative. Universal supports include resources in collaboration with our state library system. Research and homework help is provided by Power Library and the Ask a Librarian 24/7 chat feature, which is an opportunity for learners to speak with a live librarian who is able to answer real-time questions related to research and other asynchronous homework help. Supports in collaboration with our intermediate units and Pennsylvania PBS. We've established standards-aligned educational programming across our PBS airways. The content will air 5 hours a day, Monday through Friday, across all 7 Pennsylvania PBS stations. The educational programming schedules can be found at the learningathomep.org website. Our PBS partners, in collaboration with PDE and the intermediate units, have designed teacher, student, and caregiver resources associated with each program to support that programming's use in learning. These resources can also be found at learningathome.pa.gov. Standards-aligned remote and digital learning content in collaboration with our PBS partners, our intermediate units, and PDE. The intermediate units, in collaboration with Pennsylvania PBS, have been identifying and designing additional standards-aligned and universally designed teacher and student resources to support both the educational programming and learning content being delivered at schools. The resources support learning pre-K through 12. An example of one of these resources is a resource called the Robot Doctor, which is an 8-part educational programming series that's connecting algebra with robotics. The series is complete with teacher, caregiver, and student resources. The teams are supporting the use of these resources, like the Robot Doctor, through coaching and both asynchronous and synchronous professional learning. PDE is also partnering with Penn State World Campus and the PA Study Council on a distance learning virtual series called PA Schools for Tomorrow, a systems model for distance learning. The webinar series is taking a systems approach for helping school leaders and school teams design the internal systems for supporting distance learning for all students. All LEAs across the Commonwealth can access the PSU Learning Series. Finally, PDE is partnering with Allegheny Intermediate Unit 3 to leverage its new distance learning series titled On-Ramp to Remote Learning, an Introduction to Remote Learning Instructional Design Principles. The On-Ramp to Remote Learning is a 3-hour virtual synchronous PD opportunity designed for educators to develop a common language and common instructional practices for remote learning. Participants will have an opportunity to experience modeled virtual instruction, reimagine their own content, and engage instructional practices that can support learning in both a virtual and hybrid settings. Educators will explore 6 foundational remote learning design principles in collaboration with the teams from Allegheny Intermediate Unit 3. You can learn more about this particular series at onrampremote-learning.net. The first of these webinars will launch November 18th. Let's dive a little deeper into the targeted supports. Targeted supports are those resources initially being provided to school entities that have been selected for phase 1 of the statewide pilot sites. Phase 1 pilot site selections were based on several criteria, including COVID-19 transmission rates and broadband connectivity data speeds within school entities and communities across the Commonwealth. We looked at those communities that are disconnected from broadband and underconnected from broadband. And underconnected is referring to those communities that have less than 25 megabytes per second of connectivity speed. The following are targeted supports. Use data casting to deliver learning content. Data casting is the use of existing television signals to transmit learning resources to a computer at the residence of a student. Those learning resources could include simulations, videos, PDFs, Word files, Excel files, pretty much any content that could be delivered over the internet can be delivered via data casting. Each of the pilot site communities will receive technical assistance and professional learning for leveraging the data casting technology as a modality for distributing learning resources to students. The technical assistance and professional learning will be provided to the school, the community, partners, along with caregivers and students. This effort will take a broad systems approach and be supported by collaboration between state, regional, and district level teams. Each of the pilot sites will be supported with data casting hardware. This would include data casting receivers and antennas that are able to catch the TV signal, along with other resources to support implementation for all students. In addition, the collaboration with PBS to provide data casting, the state library system is supporting communities in collaboration with Information Technology and Disaster Resource Center, or ITDRC, to explore what opportunities there are in local communities for standing up a Wi-Fi mesh network in targeted regions. The libraries, in collaboration with ITDRC and community partners, will set out to build the Wi-Fi mesh networks and establish community Wi-Fi installations with the libraries as the hub and the connectors. The local libraries will act as a community hub for both the technical assistance necessary to maintain the network and any resources that a community may need for distance learning. Finally, as part of the targeted supports, the state library system will be supporting our higher education institutions to create more resources that are available on the Open Education Resource Commons platform. So let's talk a little bit more about data casting. Currently, there are 5 other states, including Pennsylvania, using data casting to deliver content. So what exactly is data casting and how does it work? The Pennsylvania PBS staff, PDE partners, intermediate units, and other stakeholders will help to curate, identify, and/or create standards-aligned instructional units that can be delivered via a TV signal. Those instructional units will be provided to the local PBS affiliate station. That local PBS affiliate station will take the instructional units and, using a secure encrypted TV signal, will send those instructional units to a receiver in each of the students' homes. The student's electronic device will then be able to download the instructional units from the receiver and begin working. Right now, a student sees his or her instructional units that are downloaded from the receiver in a web browser format. As we continue to refine our efforts, the hope is that the student sees the content in a more LMS style system known as Calibre, which has greater functionality, including the ability to track login and logout times, the amount of time a student spends on a particular activity, and will be able to provide small formative assessment measures to get touch points on students' trajectory and student learning. Currently, datacasting technology itself does not allow for a real-time return of content to the school or teacher. That will still have to be done manually or when the receiver is connected to Wi-Fi or broadband. Traditionally, to return the learning content, the student's receiver will need to upload those materials when connected to that Wi-Fi or broadband signal. Those uploaded instructional units or content will then fall into the teacher's end of the LMS system and will be there for them to review and to track student progress. To learn more and take a deeper dive into datacasting technology and how it works, please visit the learningathome.org/datacasting site. And you can watch a video that breaks down how the learning content gets from school to PBS affiliate to student and back. So what's next? PDE, in collaboration with PBS, will continue working with our national partners to support the Connecting to Learning initiative in Pennsylvania, sharing resources, sharing strategies, and sharing innovations. PBS, in collaboration with PDE, and our intermediate unit partners, will begin testing the signal strength and the interfaces for datacasting across communities in Pennsylvania. PDE will be connecting with external partners and leveraging internal assets to identify members for the statewide working teams. PDE will continue connecting with local school entities to identify pilot sites for phase 1 of the initiative. And finally, we will share a variety of resources and links following the webinar. We look forward to taking any questions and any comments regarding the Connecting to Learning initiative. Thank you. So I don't see any questions currently in the panel or in the Q&A section, but I'm wondering, Ron or Carrie, if you'd be willing to speak to a couple questions that have fleshed out in early conversations with some of our local partners around what's the difference between datacasting and the internet?
So Judd, I think your presentation sort of got to the beginning of that, in that what's interesting about a television broadcast signal is that it's digital. And since it's digital, as you stated, we're able to send computer files out just the way we send a television signal out. A television signal in and of itself is actually just a streaming video file. So in the case of using the PBS network, we're able to take and, in a one-way delivery, send files out to those devices as described.
One of the other questions, Ron, that has come out of conversations, and I don't know if I spoke to it well or not during the webinar part, but there's been a lot of questions around the security of using this signal. Could you talk a little bit about that space?
Sure. So this is a secure way to deliver content, just stating that up front. Data casting, its origins, even before education use, were in public safety. And there's actually more installations of this for public safety out in the United States than there are for education at this point. So in order to comply with all of those very strict security standards, the data casting framework, both the back end and the receive end, have had to be made very robust to meet those encryption and those security guidelines. So we're following and adopting that same hierarchy in the distribution of the educational content.
Awesome. And then Carrie or Ron, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the universal support and the educational programming and how that's accessible, who are the target audiences for that programming, and maybe what we have in store for the future with that particular block of time.
Sure, I can answer that. So the educational programming, the Learning at Home series, I think you mentioned on the webinar, Judd, is 5 hours per day, Monday through Friday. So it's 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday on all 7 Pennsylvania PBS stations, so that no matter where a learner is in the Commonwealth, they're able to access the same educational programming. So they can tune into their local Pennsylvania PBS station. We also have the weekly schedules posted on pennsylvaniapbs.org. I think Sarah has put a couple links to pennsylvaniapbs.org in the chat. So you can click on the monthly programming schedules and they're actually aligned. The programming is aligned in grade bands. So it'll serve anywhere from pre-K to 12. So the morning sessions tend to be pre-K to 3rd serving, but you can easily find a correct grade band for your learner. And also the education is broken out into different learning modalities. So they're highlighted in colors for programs that cover STEM, for example, for programs that cover social emotional learning components, for programs that cover arts or social studies, for example. So it's very easy to grab the grade level you need and then grab the content area of focus that you're looking for. And then for those who do have access to internet that may be using Learning at Home educational programming, we do have links to the corresponding PBS Learning Media assets. So PBS Learning Media is a digital library of supplemental materials. So we do have supplemental materials for each program in the Learning at Home block. So learning can continue beyond watching the program on your local PBS station. Also with those, on the pennsylvaniapbs.org website, we create weekly activity sheets. So those are for elementary school students and pre-K kindergarten readiness. And both the schedule and the activity sheets are available in English and Spanish, so that these are all extensions to the learning from the programming assets. So it's really meant to serve pre-K up through 12, so that we're covering a large space of learners. In the future, we're also going to be looking at extending opportunities into post-secondary, so kind of the pre-K through 20, as we're calling it. Ron, I don't know if you want to add anything else about Learning at Home and/or talk about anything in the future that might be coming up.
I think you covered that quite well. Thank you.
I'm wondering, Sarah, do you see anything in the question and answer section regarding?
And actually, Ron, Judd, as Sarah's looking at that, if I may mention, and perhaps Sarah could paste this in, WQED, which is one of the Pennsylvania PBS stations out in the Pittsburgh area, has also put together a program called SOS. So it's Support Our Schools. So it is prepackaged 2-week content bundles, so that if a school district is out of the building or needs supplemental materials for a 2-week period, they can also easily grab those assets and everything's turnkey. So again, the Support Our Schools is broken down in grade bands and different learning subjects. So I wanted to make sure that that was known here as well. And thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Carrie. The first question is, there are a number of components to the initiative. Is there any one space that you can find links to all the resources? We will follow up the webinar with a series of links and resources that attendees can have and see. Currently, right now, there isn't a particular button for this initiative on the Creating Equitable Schools Hub, but we will follow up and make sure that there's some opportunities to find those resources on PDE site. A lot of the resources that we mentioned, you can find on the Learning at Home site, but we'll make sure to follow up with each of these elements. And then with regards to what obligations beyond viewing the webinars are school teams tasked to engage if they register for the PA Schools for Tomorrow Proactive Planning Past the Pandemic series? Right now, what we're looking for is first engaging in the webinar series, and then in collaboration with our continuity of education points of contacts, we'll be following up with each of the school teams to really help them walk through each of the tools that our PSU partners has designed. And each of those tools has a series of guiding questions that will help district leaders and district teams really do an autopsy of their internal systems and their readiness for distance learning, and then begin to build out a comprehensive plan / strategy for deploying distance learning in their communities. And each webinar kind of tunnels down a little bit deeper into that journey. And after each webinar, teams will be asked to answer a series of 3 questions via a Google form that will help them guide them through the tool. And then at the final sort of the end of this, they would have the ingredients to build that proactive plan. And if folks have missed any of those elements in the series, we had 1 webinar to date that is recorded, and you're going to be able to find that on the PDE YouTube channel as part of a playlist of distance learning resources. And we will follow up with each of the teams that have registered and each of the continuity of education points of contact to make sure that they have all the resources. We did send a follow-up email last week to all of those partners, but we plan on following up again this week with a reminder of what's to come and what elements they should be working through as teams. And we can make sure that we have a Google Doc that has all of the links to the flyers and the registration and the data casting videos. We'll follow up with that 1-pager with all of the necessary links so folks can share that out. Yes, there is a recording of the first session of the Penn State distance learning series, and we will make sure that that is available via YouTube. Right now it's available in as part of the Zoom link. And if folks were having trouble attending that first session, we were really excited and a little bit surprised at the overwhelming number of participants. So we did increase the size of the meeting space so that folks won't get knocked out when they're logging in. And we're just at the point of closed captioning that first video so that it can be available on the YouTube site. I'm just going to pause for a second and see if there are any additional questions that folks want to drop into the question and answer box. I'm curious, Ron or Carrie, is there anything else that we would like to share with the group before we would wrap up for the day regarding any elements of the initiative or anything that we may have missed?
Judd, I'll take another question that we've gotten frequently in our early conversations, which is, what is that student and teacher experience like on the data casting platform? So on the student side, if you can imagine, since these children don't have internet in their homes, they'll actually be logging into like a local web server. So think about a Linksys router or a Wi-Fi network in your home, logging into a web page, so that when teacher data casts the lesson to these students, the instructional units. They actually basically just log on to a web page, and there they'll have access to, just like they would in a traditional school setting on a web page, they'd have access to all the different lessons, the assessment pieces, perhaps some of the optional activities. And that's how they'll be able to complete those activities in their homes without internet. And then on the teacher side for our educators on the webinar, that's basically like designing a lesson inside of a learning management system, basically bundling different pieces of content together, packaging them, assigning them to students. And those then lessons are what will get datacast out to students throughout the course of an evening.
Thanks for that, Ron. And you know, we had the opportunity to run through what the interface looks and feels like, and it was exciting to actually see the interface, and it was a lot more similar and familiar than I thought it would be in my first pass. So I think folks that are part of the initiative and get an opportunity to look at this early phase will be pleasantly surprised with the experience and how it feels for both the teacher and the student as they engage in the resource. We did have a question about, do the schools have to be in the pilot to get resources through the PSU series and work through the plan? The answer to that is no. The PSU series is a universal support for any school or any school team. So you could engage in the webinar as an individual at point in time, and maybe there's one element of that webinar series that you want to engage in, and that's the webinars that you tune into. Or you can take it as a journey and engage in each of the webinar series, leverage each of the tools and work towards that comprehensive plan for distance learning in your school. So it's really, it's almost like, you know, a choose your own adventure in the sense that you can make it tailored to fit your needs. But we do encourage the team approach with viewing all of the series so that you can really build out a robust plan. And I would also add that the series from Allegheny Intermediate Unit, we're really excited about the conversations we've had with that team, in the sense that is going to be something that has an opportunity to focus on educators and their delivery and their instructional design. The work from our PSU partners is really taking that holistic entire school entity approach to build the system for distance learning. So those two experiences are really a companion to one another. And we would encourage folks to check out the work and engage in the efforts that are taking root out in AIU 3. I think that would be good, Carrie.
Yeah, I would actually like to take just a couple minutes and mention the professional development webinar series that Pennsylvania PBS has put together. So there's actually 3 of them specific to, there's actually 5 altogether, but 3 specific that we did in August about using PBS learning media assets. So the first webinar series that we did, and actually, Sarah, if you wouldn't mind, they are listed on pennsylvaniapbs.org/teachers, if you wouldn't mind pasting that in the chat. The first one was integrating on-air curriculum into your classroom. The next one was integrating or how to use PBS learning media assets in your classroom. So again, these supplemental activities that include, you know, videos, lessons plans, etc., sort of the extension possibilities. And I'm gonna click that link. The third one was about using PBS resources to support social and emotional learning. So please, those webinars will live in perpetuity. If you have not viewed them or spent some time with them, please do so. And then we also have 2 webinars that were just completed in the last 2 weeks. There's a third series coming. Again, all around using PBS learning media resources, but this one was specifically focused on the American Portrait programming series. So for those who are not familiar with American Portrait, this is actually an initiative where individuals from all across the country choose to upload short videos of themselves. It's you know, how they're coping through the pandemic, what they're experiencing. It's first-person accounts so that their voice is really heard. It's really wonderful. And so we have 2 webinars around that so far. The first 2 are using PBS learning media assets in relation to American Portrait Series. The next one is media literacy, again, using the American Portrait Series. And that means how to identify what's true and what's not, which is very important, I think, in this media age. And then the third one that's coming up, we'll talk about storytelling. So we're very happy to provide these resources, and I'm glad that you mentioned them, Ron and Judd. So thank you.
And I also wanted to, I feel like we might have made the assumption that we all know where our PBS affiliate is. So I did drop in the chat that you can find your PBS affiliate station and look at your viewing area. And if folks are curious, like if you're on one boundary or you may live in one space, but you get your signal from another, can you still do the data casting? And the answer to that is yes. We're working on all of those elements to make sure that we figure out what signal and what tower is best to send from. So there isn't any concerns there if you're in one affiliate versus the other, whether or not you can access the resources. And the other piece that we did mention the robot doctor as one of the resources we have generated. So I did just drop in the chat a link to that particular asset that was co-constructed with partners from PBS and our intermediate unit and Carnegie Mellon University, and really connecting. It's a great example of the types of resources that we're trying to design and curate and build to use in this particular context. So I think if we don't have any additional questions, or if Ron or Carrie, there isn't anything else that you would like to add, Sarah and team, I think this pretty much wraps up the update on creating equitable schools, a roadmap for education leaders, and the Connecting to Learning initiative. And we'll follow up to make sure that everybody gets the links to the resources we mentioned. If you have any questions or additional questions or comments, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself. It's via email or reach out via phone and connect with any of us here on the call. So we're here to support and looking forward to continuing collaborating with all of our Pennsylvania partners, and really appreciate you all taking time out of your days to listen to the update on the opportunity.